All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We're up against a hard break. You'll have to forgive me. Like I know we are, so we'll be back. I want to bring David Ray on for a moment when we come back, and then Donnie, we have to finish up with that De La Rosa audio. I'm serious because it's pretty fantastic. The big news just now out of the Arkansas Senate, probably the most positive thing to happen this session, is that the bill to end special elections. You know, anytime they want to raise a tax, they don't want to wait till the general or a primary. They want to, they want the least amount of voter turnout possible, essentially. It passed the Arkansas Senate today with 18 votes, which is just the threshold that you need. If you had one less, it would have failed. 18 votes, barely getting out of the Arkansas Senate. And we're going to start hearing, now that this is out of the Arkansas Senate, get ready, folks, because the superintendents are all going to turn into Chicken Littles. I mean, they've turned into Chicken Littles right now because they know they'll never get a tax increase passed or unless they really need it. I'll say it. I mean, 44% voter turnout versus 19% voter turnout. I mean, that's what you're looking at. Huge difference. And it's about the consent of the governed. Back in a minute. All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. So sorry. All right, so the big news, the Arkansas Senate today passed. What's the bill number? SB
723.
723. The State Director for Americans for Prosperity, Arkansas, Mr. David Ray, is back on the program. David, welcome, sir.
Thank you, Paul. It's good to be back.
Huge news today. This thing passing barely. Well, you set it up for us because I understand you thought it passed, and then it failed, and then it passed. Tell us.
Well, so the bill passed on a roll call vote. It got 19 votes in favor, and then
to end special elections. That's what this bill's designed to do. Keep going.
Yeah, and so it got 19 votes, and then a member of the opposition made a motion to sound the ballot, which basically ensures that people who voted yes have to actually be in their chair at the time of the vote. So they went back, and by that time, a couple of senators had stepped out of the room, either to return a phone call or get a drink of water or what have you. And so it actually, 2 votes were struck from the total, and it failed. But then there was a motion to expunge it, basically to get rid of the previous vote, and they ran it again. And when they ran it again, it passed with 18 votes. So that's the minimum number of votes you can get a bill out of the Senate with. You
look at some of the nays on this list, and I'm just going to say this for our listeners. Senator John Cooper voting against this, and I assumingly because probably hearing from superintendents and other people that, hey, we don't need to end special elections because,
the main groups that are opposed to this type of reform are the cities and counties, and the primary reason for that is because they want to be able to hold elections to raise your taxes whenever they please. So the reason that we need this bill is because Arkansas has a special election problem. Local governments across the state will use special elections held at irregular and unpredictable times as part of a deliberate strategy to pass items, mostly tax increases, without drawing really serious scrutiny from the voters. And so I'll give you the classic example I like to give people. 2012, the North Little Rock School District held a property tax increase election, and they held it on February 14th. So for the uninitiated, that's Valentine's Day. So what that means is while most people were picking out long stem roses or making dinner plans with their spouse, the school district and the employees of the school district were going to the polls to vote themselves a tax increase. And this bill simply says if you're going to hold a special election, you need to put it on the primary ballot or the general election ballot so that more people can come and participate, so that it can draw more scrutiny and be analyzed by the voters. A lot of people don't even know these things are happening, and so they receive almost very little turnout.
Yeah, very little turnout. And I know in the committee process, and again, we're talking with David Ray, State Director for Americans for Prosperity, Arkansas. There was figures, like the average special election turnout, you're looking at 19% versus 44% in a general election. And why do I get the feeling that if I was a superintendent, a typical superintendent, I don't want to throw you all under the bus, but why do I get the feeling you would rather have the 19% turnout versus the 44%, given the fact that it's always the superintendents who are like, we got to have more money from the people?
Yeah, so, I think that the primary reason that folks oppose this legislation, and some of them will come out and say it, and others will only say it behind closed doors, But the reason is because they want to be able to control when the elections happen and thereby determine the outcome. So I think it's inherently problematic when the people who have a stake in the outcome of election can strategically control its timing. And by moving it to either a primary or a general, you get increased turnout, you get higher levels of participation. Look, an election held at an unpredictable time is really the biggest barrier to voter participation for the average voter. You know, we hear a lot about how, from the other side, about how we don't need to have things like voter ID that would create an impediment to people voting. The biggest impediment to voting is holding an election that draws almost no scrutiny on August 18th or February 12th or sometime during the middle of spring break when you're, off with the kids to Panama City Beach or something.
Yeah.
That is the biggest impediment to voting. And really, government actions, there is...
I just want to say, if you really cared, you'd cancel your vacation. I mean, that's the kind of arguments that they'll try to make,
Well, in committee, they tried to use this idea that we need to hold these at special times so that voters can just really focus on this one issue. They said we need quote an informed voter. Well, I'm an informed voter, and I know a lot of other informed voters, and there are people who are very well informed who simply aren't aware of special elections because they draw such little scrutiny and attention. These things almost very rarely get covered in depth by the media. And so this is just a very simple, common-sense measure to consolidate and standardize the process.
So you added an amendment, or there was an amendment added, I guess, to this bill. It went back to committee yesterday and got out, or Monday and got out yesterday. What would this amendment do? And I feel like this is a good amendment because I feel like it kind of takes the steam out of some of the the tax increase crowd's argument.
Yeah, we added an amendment to this that would allow for a special election in some very limited sort of emergency-type circumstances. So one of the criticisms that we got early on in this process was that, if a tornado rips through our town and destroys our county jail, we might need to levy a tax immediately to rebuild. And I thought that was a legitimate concern, so we amended the bill and added in there an emergency provision for things like that. So that's now taken care of. Frankly, at this point, the only legitimate argument as to why you would oppose something like this is because you want to be able to strategically control the timing of tax increase elections.
I think you're exactly right.
Let me give you one point of research that this was provided by the Arkansas Center for Research and Economics, ACRE, at UCA. They went back to 1981 when local option sales taxes were first made available to cities and counties. Since that time, there have been 900 local sales tax elections held in Arkansas. Now, the percentage of those that has passed overall is about 70%. But when they're held on a general election date, the pass rate is 42%. This is a reform that will save taxpayers money because there is when these types of issues receive scrutiny, the voters are more judicious in terms of whether or not they vote these things through. And so this is a very common sense reform that's going to save the taxpayers money.
That is an amazing statistic, 42%.
And these special elections cost easily in the tens of thousands of dollars. I was a couple of months back, I went and testified against a local tax increase that my city council was in Maumelle was considering. And at the time, the mayor said, well, if we vote it down, we could always refer it out to the voters and let them decide. And if we do it in a special election, it'll only cost about $15,000. And I thought to myself, well, hey, buddy, unless you're going to pay for it, I don't like that idea.
Yeah.
Because that's money that comes out of the taxpayers' pockets.
Yeah, unnecessarily when we have elections already scheduled, already put into the budget. David Ray, man, congratulations. This is a huge bill, and now it goes to the House, Senate. The House committee.
That's right. We're halfway through the process. We've still got House State Agencies Committee to clear that hurdle, and then obviously the full House vote. Yeah. Assuming we get that
there's
far.
About to be a tsunami of people down here saying, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. But I got a feeling the House is going to be more for this than against it. I hope so, anyway.
You would hope. I mean, look, just as a test vote 4 years ago, former state representative, now the insurance commissioner, Alan Kerr from Little Rock area. He ran a bill almost identical to this, and that bill received 67 votes in the House. Now, that was at a time when there were only, I want to say, 51 Republicans. So
now there's 76.
So,
wow. Yeah, based on that logic, I would expect this to pass overwhelmingly.
And frankly, this should be a bill that draws bipartisan support because the voter turnout and
a big deal.
The voter participation issue really cuts across ideological lines.
Mr. David Ray, Americans for Prosperity, Arkansas. We appreciate it, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. All right, so that's great news. We're going to follow that. We'll give you updates